Sustainability system, like I said, is always a mutually dependent. You feed one end, it gives you the output, feeds back in. The most important pillar is that you need to understand the implicit demand of a question if it exists. ध्यान से देखना, because जितनी बारीकियां आप पकड़ पाओगे यहाँ पे, जितना rigor आप समझ पाओगे, उतना ही rigor you will use in other themes like inclusion across different segments. Now this question is attempted by Mukund in one of our internal tests. I'll show you step by step as to how you build your own equity to come at that level, how you use your existing knowledge base to come at that level. Across these axes, all kind of sustainability questions are being built, all kind of debates are being held, all kind of numbers and projections are being thrown, and you need to know the headline numbers on all of them as a part of your note making.
I started my full-fledged preparation after I joined the Ultimate Assessment Program at Civilsdaily.
Civilsdaily. There is a 12-month strategy which I have done on Civilsdaily platform only.
I reached out to the Civilsdaily team.
Civilsdaily.
Current affairs में Civilsdaily.
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 A mentorship program of Civilsdaily, and that did help me a lot.
Hi everyone. As you know, I've been doing a series of videos over at this channel which talks about the nuances which the rankers are able to master with respect to their mains answer writing, which most of the beginners miss out on. We're in the October month, almost half of that is gone. And today, I want to drill back the same point, but in much greater depth, taking help of one core concept, that is sustainability. So what we'll do is, as we seek out to master this mains answer writing module much better, which is being followed in our Smash Mains program, in our UAP program, while for the students who are part of the CD course curriculum. What I'll do is, I'll take two rankers, Mukund Chahar and Harneet. I'll take their answers on the topic of sustainability across different themes. One would be in gender equality, one would be in agriculture. And I'll introduce two more themes, education and health. And I'll tell you how, if you've understood this concept in class or by yourself better, how to translate that into a topper level answer. Okay? ध्यान से देखना, because जितनी बारीकियां आप पकड़ पाओगे यहाँ पे, जितना rigor आप समझ पाओगे, उतना ही rigor you will use in other themes like inclusion across different segments. Okay? Now, there are 5 non-negotiables when it comes to answer writing practice, okay, which has to translate into your mains answer exams as well. Today, we'll take only one of them, and I will try to build independent videos on the rest of the pillars. But the most important pillar is that you need to understand the implicit demand of a question if it exists. You need to understand the core, the heart of the question before you start answering the explicit demands. And I'll tell you how that creates a drastic difference between a ranker level marks which is close to 6.5 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 and a normal average answer which is 3, maximum 4. Let's take a question, and this is the question on gender equality. Remember this keyword as we make a keynote of it. Sustainable development. Gender equality is key to sustainable development. The explicit demands on this question is that highlight the impediments faced and propose a roadmap to advance. Now, this question is attempted by Mukund in one of our internal tests. I'll show you step by step as to how you build your own equity to come at that level, how you use your existing knowledge base to come at that level. The explicit demands, everyone knows. Every aspirant who's done any bit of answer writing will figure out these explicit demands. But the implicit demand is very crucial, that it's not just about fairness. It is integral to sustainability. And when we talk about sustainability in UPSC terms, and when we have to prove that something is sustainable, or when we have to quote a report that something is sustainable, we always harp back to some or the other GDP numbers, or some report which says that if you increase this participation by this percentage, GDP will increase by this. Or some report which says if you reduce school dropping by, in class ABC by this many percentages, GDP will have this much impact. Similar for health, right? So back of your mind, you should always have these indicators ready for the reference. With that as backdrop, let's try to understand what a beginner versus ranker level approach to the answer would look like. Okay, and this is playing so very on the initial level, just with the introduction. So a beginner level answer will tend to just list down the issues why gender inequality exists, because of patriarchy, lack of education, wage gap, and so many more. These are like the reasons why it exists. Ranker would basically say and talk about nail this thing first, because that is the core implicit demand. Ranker will talk about how, if you give a good thought to gender inequality, you will be able to separate the population and convert them from dependents to contributors. We'll talk about force multiplier in economy, right? Women's participation, which includes human capital, resource efficiency, and social cohesion. These are like tech jargons or key jargons whenever you have to talk about any answer which has to do with sustainability. Whenever you have to think of any quote or any person, invoke that in your answer. You have to talk about how leaders, when you see women leaders, they invest more in health, education, right? So your answer has to start from this. The sustainable development का benchmark ही है. If you understand this, if you understand how gender and sustainable development goes hand in hand, then let me, before I give you the full-fledged answer to this question, let me give you two more themes. एक है education और दूसरी है health. A similar question, if it comes around education, okay, which is that it's not just a social good. Don't just look at education as a social good, but look at it as a prerequisite for sustainable development. And similar directive, discuss the roadmap, discuss the impediments. A beginner will only be able to stay till here. Education helps people, or education is a social good, etc., etc. But education sustains systems and institutions. Ye linkage, which in turn builds higher on education principles. This is a ranker level observation. And to make this linkage come in actuality in the paper, you would have to know Amartya Sen capability principle, or you would have had to know the HDI, Human Development Index, basic fundamentals, right? If you know that, then you can paraphrase these people. Amartya Sen's capability approach towards education, basic freedom, it builds capability. Or the SDG phrases, education is not only an end in itself, but a means to achieve all other sustainable development goals. Imagine now your introduction would start at this level, and then you will substantiate that with some data, some recent reports, which will prove what are the mapping that they've done. Itni classes se hata doge bachcho ko to kya ho jayega? Fall or rise in GDP, right? So your ranker level argument for this question would be education sustains development by creating adaptive citizens and innovative economies. Just like illiteracy, resource depletion erodes a nation's carrying capacity. You'll be able to map these two, give a contrast. You got it? We did this with gender and sustainability. This is education and sustainability. And if I take you further, same is the case with public health. Public health may be the internal transition, the implicit demand that you need to understand even before you start penning down an answer is this. That you are not just allocating a portion of your GDP for the public health, for public good. You're basically investing in resilience system. Because why? Because this is the cycle that you want to be always ahead of. Where do you derive these ideas and where do you paraphrase an introduction for these ideas? You should have notes which would have these quotes. Investing in health is investing in human resilience, the foundation of sustainable development. This is from UNDP HDR report. Good health is both a driver and an outcome of sustainable development. So this has to be like your bedrock. When you think there's a question on sustainability, that is the implicit demand. You have to see that theme in its entirety and how it fits the education, health, or gender vertical. अब अगर इतना समझ में आ गया है, so even before we go further, you need to understand that UPSC has these 5 pillars under which it will ask questions on sustainability. Okay, I tackle these 3 things, and it would be good that the mature ones and the veterans among you who are watching, they can remember Amartya Sen capabilities approach for this. So human development में ये वाले portions आते हैं. Then comes inclusions, then comes livelihood, infrastructure, and ecological climate. Across these axes, all kind of sustainability questions are being built, all kind of debates are being held, all kind of numbers and projections are being thrown, and you need to know the headline numbers on all of them as a part of your note making, because then you will be able to link both India and world reports and talk about these heavily in the introduction. Okay, take a screenshot of this, and whenever we'll get to discuss the question which are specifically about inclusion, livelihood, infrastructure, ecological climate, you will see these narratives coming back again and again. You will see these transitions coming back again and again. Okay. Now, Just to give a closure to this answer, let me take you to the answer written by Mukund. Mukund attempted UPSC twice and he improved upon his rank. He was a smash main student, and this is how he attempted the question internally. So, India is ranked an abysmal 127th on the Global Gender Index. This is a fact. Why does it come? Because sustainability reports will give you this fact before you talk about the importance of sustainability and gender development, how ultimately everything aids in the economy. That's the key performance indicator on which most people talk, right? And you can see that ILO says that India's GDP can increase by this much percentage if gender parity is achieved. So you're substantiating the implicit demand that that's a need of the hour. Not just the impediments and not just the roadmap for gender equality, which most of you will do. Most of you would know patriarchy. Most of you would know poor political representation, poor workforce representation. That's the second part of the question, the explicit demand. Very few will know these things in depth, and that is where the marks are gained. I hope that part is abundantly clear, that this is how you need to see questions. Now, how do you understand what is the implicit demand? It comes from practice. The more you practice, the more you get your answer checked from us, the more you attempt our papers, the more you sit with the mentors, Arvind sir, Shubham sir, and the whole Smash team, the more you will realize what implicit, explicit you're missing. But above all, it comes from your understanding of this theme in general. Wherever you see words like sustainability, inclusion principles, you would know that there is a fundamental rubric, there's a fundamental framework to which all of them harp back. Okay? Now, these are easy ones in the sense that these facts you have to remember, but they're relatively easy to recall explicitly जब mention किए हुए demand को. Let's now understand the same theme, sustainability, via another ranker's answer. And this time, try to understand that this question is a bit more trickier than the previous ones. The HDI, education, health, and gender are simpler. This one's slightly more trickier. This says that the Indian agriculture requires a transition in cropping patterns. There's a transition in cropping patterns to secure a sustainable farm production and enhance farmer incomes. Okay, in this context, discuss the changes required. So very explicit demands, changes required, and highlight the steps taken by the government to facilitate it. Right. So this is explicit demand 1. This is explicit demand 2. But this is where the heart of the question lies. If you take a moment and pause the screen right now, just try to see what points come to your mind when you see this question. Everyone would know that you have to identify the changes required in the cropping patterns. People would, you would have to write the government measures that has to be taken to promote such a transition. And the focus has to be on sustainability and income enhancement, right? But very few of you would go to this level of depth, or the maturity among you guys would be needed to get to this level of depth, where you'll understand that this question is not so much about steps taken and what is the opinion on the measure, but about what was the need of such a transition. Insert green revolution into this picture and you'll realize how we had to shift from monoculture to a climate resilient, diversified, market linked agriculture. Cropping pattern is not just crop replacement, it's a whole systemic change. And when your notes will be like this, or when you are standing in classes would be like this, तब तुम्हें पता लगेगा कि ये जो क्रॉपिंग पैटर्न चेंज का जो ट्रांजिशन है, इसके जितने सारे कोर पिलर्स हैं, मार्केट एक्सेस, गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज, प्रमोशन, रेजिलियंस, policies which are related to that, how all those are aligned, and accordingly your layout of the answer would change. Okay, this is an even higher X factor thing, that you need to understand that whenever you get questions on sustainability, there is a loop. It's a virtuous loop which gets started. Basically, sustainability is all about mutual dependence of two variables. If I do good here, I get a good output. That in turn will feed back the system, and this is a virtuous cycle which keeps going on. Okay, we'll come to this third point, but a mature ranker implicit demand would be to focus on these two. And that is how Harneet focused, and he started his thing. So Harneet didn't write the green revolution point, which he should have written in the answers, right? This is a green revolution, monoculture to now climate resilient and all those things, transition which is needed. But he mentioned very clearly what is the state of agriculture right now. Heavy dependence on these cereals, rice, wheat, and all that, right? And unsustainable cropping patterns, issues with the cropping patterns, which is lower income. And let me just take you to the full answer. This. Quickly mentioning the issues that are currently existing with the way agriculture is going on, because of which there are some changes required. And these changes are required and they're put into simplified point format, which have all those dimensions addressed: institutional support, better access, focus on organic farming, agri R&D, ethical R&D, and I think market access also, use of technology and market access. And then he's taken GOI steps. Now, this could have been tackled even in a higher X factor if someone could represent this framework. Understand this framework now. Sustainability system, like I said, is always a mutually dependent system, right? You feed one end, it gives you the output, feeds back in. Okay. Normal systemic logic are simple. It's basically input to output to impact. Okay. And then, as we go on with the economic cycle, you see that the impact, if it's not getting fed back in the system, it either depletates the input, this particular input, and so you'll have to figure out another input, which gives output to impact, right? If it's not a sustainable renewing logic, then your input will always be debilitating, right? But mutual dependent system, which is the core backbone of sustainability, right? They have output replenishing the conditions that produce them, which is where this framework comes. So now a homework for you would be to replace agriculture here, put out education, put out health, put out gender, or put out any other theme where sustainability has to be incorporated, and try to make these mutually dependent axes. Another way to make a diagram, which Harneet made, would be to go by this logic, present very simply as to how new schemes are coming for this, institutional ethical changes which are coming here. How are we taking care of the economic access? Because if there's a transition in agriculture, it has to be supported for a while by promotional activities, government-driven inculcations into new schemes, or market access, new kind of market value chains. And talk about how that further feeds in the social fabric. That is where technically you're able to show how sustainability is being achieved and it's kind of self-perpetuating, right? What I've done in this video is I've taken two rankers, Mukund and Harneet, ke do attempted sawal, and I've drawn back on similar themes, which if you look back on the video again, you will realize are coming from the core pillars where UPSC will ask sustainability level questions. Okay. My recommendation to you would be that go back in your notes, go back in the questions that you've attempted, and see if this is the level of depth to which you have categorized things. If you have data pointers from all these reports, gender budgeting, FDG, all these reports that I mentioned and some more, to prove the case why sustainability is important. If you can make that case as a consultant, your introduction is sorted. Okay. If you can draw from world reports, your conclusions are also sorted. You will be able to give me two distinct data points as to why sustainability in XYZ is inevitable. Then my understanding is that because of your daily reading and your Samachar Manthan notes or whatever current affairs you're doing, you will be able to fill in the gaps wherever data is needed from our schemes, our reports, etc., etc. And if you're able to master frameworks like that, like the one I made for agriculture, you have institution, you have environment here, you have economy, and you have social. If you're able to show the mutual dependencies, then you'll get the highest marks for that question. And this is not just a mains problem. This is a problem, or this is an opportunity to course correct the way you are studying. These are core concepts. These are not even micro themes. These are core concepts. They're supposed to be done in a particular way, supposed to be mastered in a particular way so that you never ever forget them. And when you get a question on sustainability, this diagram comes top of your mind. This is what we do as a part of our curriculum. This is how we train people. So for every question, we ask you to understand theme and demand. We ask you to understand implicit demand and explicit demand. Because implicit demand is not just a set of points that you have to write. It is the heart of the question. It is the reason why that question was being given. And very few or few of the rankers were able to write that, or aspirants were able to write that, they get the maximum out of that question. After the implicit demands, after all this thing is done, then, like I said, we come to the other thing, structural reasoning. Core of CD's answer writing is DAE approach, and I'll take a detailed discussion. If you write back in the comments if you want a detailed video on that, I'll try to give you a detailed DAE framework feedback. Then comes about precision and density. This is where your facts, your case studies, your references matter. Otherwise, you will see that you will be writing a lot of English but without much points. This is precision and density. It's most needed in GS answers where you have to put your point across in 150 to 250 words. Then comes design thinking in writing. Design thinking is basically everything to do about your body. Subheadings. Then within the subheadings, comparison. Okay. And then comes the X factor points. This is how your daily study patterns should look like. कम questions attempt करो, लेकिन उनको attempt इस level तक करो, so that this becomes your muscle memory. Okay, we're launching batches this October and November. Based on these fundamentals, based on these approaches, you'll see the exact same things getting mastered out there. And we're going past these things and starting with the UAP and SMASH frameworks, which actually have helped these rankers. These are our exclusive students. They cracked the rank in the very first attempt they joined us. Their strategy, their notes, their evolution arc with this is all with us. We've made videos about it. We've shown you how it matters to start early, how it matters to keep going it week over week, and how you consistently improve. And the most important thing that you need to take away as a part of your mental motivation trigger is that your competition is not with beginners alone. Your competition is with those people who've already secured a rank. And I have not even included the state service officers here. This is the hidden insight from this year's result. Only 7.6% people are from the first attempt. That means if you're attempting for the first time, and if your foundation course is done, basic understanding is done, basic NCERT is done, forget even foundation course. Basic NCERT is done, come and talk to us, show us your notes, show us your answer writing, and we'll tell you what it is there to improve. Start on the journey with us, and you will find a difference that you can actually see changing week on week or month on month. Okay, this is it. If you understood these, the whole approach, do comment back. I plan to take further videos on the last 4 pillars of answer writing: DAE, precision writing, a structured, a hierarchical writing, and then finally the X factor. And what we'll do is we'll follow the same pattern. We'll take up a theme, a concept, sustainability types. We'll take up answer writing from rankers and beginners, and I'll show you the difference so that you can self-evaluate yourself, see where you stand, find comfort in your progress. And if you don't find that comfort, come talk to us as soon as you can. We're in Delhi, and you can seek appointment with us, and we'll be happy to sit with your notes, sit with your basic doubts, and give you a way forward. Thank you, and I see you the next time.